Theme parks as we know it are vastly expanding and always changing in order to design and test new ways to entertain vast arrays of audiences all over the world. From the opening of Disneyland in the 17th of July 1955, attractions have been constantly getting more upgrades in terms of their effects, a way to immerse the audience into the fictional worlds that were presented by the companies. To pay homage to these classic attractions, I will be reviewing some of the most famous and infamous attractions that were brought to life by describing the effect, how it works, and how much of an impact it had in the business. The Haunted Mansion first opened in California on August 9, 1969. It presented many different spooks and scares that will undergo various changes, even after development. Some would be upgraded to be better, such as the infamous re-haunting refurbishment that happened in 2006, while some original effects that turned out to be unpopular were removed, like the live suit of armor near the endless hallway, or just didn't work at the time, like the infamous Hatbox Ghost. The latter would make a return later in 2015. But there is one specific scene that never seemed to change, and personally speaking for the best: the ballroom scene. The ballroom scene takes place after Madame Leota, voiced by Elena Audley, summons the ghostly residents of the mansion. The ride vehicles, also more commonly known as doom buggies, then turn to view the grand hall from above, where guests can see many ghostly figures attending some sort of party. Men and women alike get drunk, have a birthday party, and an organ player plays ominous music for ghostly couples to dance to. The effect that achieves such ghostly results is actually a lot simpler than you think. Underneath the ride vehicles, there are the original figurines of the people that you see below you on the scene, inside a black room. A glass panel is tilted in an angle while light is shone at the figures, reflecting them and causing them to appear and disappear. This effect is known as the Pepper's Ghost effect, and Disney still uses this effect to this day, notably during a scene in Pinocchio's Daring Journey, in which the blue fairy seems to reappear and disappear. The effect was revolutionary for its time, and is still rather impressive to this day. It is still one of the select parts of the attraction that uses no holograms and or screens, unlike Constance, the Bride in the Attic after the haunting refurbishment, and the new version of the Hatbox Ghost, both of which use projections as their main source of illusion. The Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, more commonly known as just the Tower of Terror, opened on July 22nd, 1994, and is based off the 1959 TV show The Twilight Zone. The ride proved very popular with thrill seekers all over the world, not just for its ghostly effects and trippy visuals, but for one particular thing: its drop system. After guests are taken through the fifth dimension after boarding a cursed elevator of the 1930s-style hotel, they are taken up to 48 meters into the air, granting a view of the entire park before plummeting 40 meters down in a fixed drop system that consisted of just one rise and fall sequence. 2 years later, in 1996, another rise and fall sequence was added, aptly named Twice the Fright. It wasn't until 2003 that the tower was programmed to have a random sequence of 4 different drops in one ride through. The way the elevator drops faster than gravity is achieved by the use of 2 giant induction motors that are connected to 2 cable drums that are used to pull the elevator up and down at a top speed of 63 kilometers an hour. And since that the Earth's gravity is approximately 9.81 meters squared, the elevator indeed is pulled down faster than Earth's gravity, which often results in guests feeling a sense of weightlessness as they drop, with long hair visibly rising during the fall. After the drop sequence, the elevator is then pulled out at the drop shaft via trackless communicators and deposit guests in the exit, which happens to be located opposite to the loading area. The elevator is then backed up towards the latter and turn around, ready to take in the next guests for another ride in the Tower of Terror. Expedition Everest opened in Disney's Animal Kingdom on April 7th, 2006. It is rather popular with thrill seekers at the park with its 61-meter height and a rather infamous drop that became the staple of the attraction for 14 years now. But there are a couple of sequences in the ride that also gave the attraction its fame: the backwards drop and the Yeti itself. After guests are taken up the lift hill to the top of Mount Everest, they soon come across the broken tracks that are nearby, seemingly caused by the infamous Yeti. Unable to go anywhere, the ride vehicle ends up going backwards, spiralling out of control down the mountain. When the train moves past the junction before the backwards section of the ride, it stops for a moment to allow the track to switch over and allow the train to go backwards and into the mountain. As the train makes its way down the mountain in an infamous 80 feet drop at a speed of 50 kilometers an hour, it gives the guests a close call encounter with the Yeti, before ending up back at the boarding area. The Yeti animatronic was indeed meant to be able to move. While its so-called A mode, the Yeti would move and attempt to grab the guests as they sped past him. This can be seen in many different promotional material for the ride, such as its official trailer or the Walt Disney World website. However, in just a few months after opening day, the Yeti's framing holding it together had split, causing a huge risk of a catastrophic malfunction. To resolve the issue, Walt Disney Imagineering decided to keep the Yeti in its additional B mode, in which it would remain stationary. To give the illusion that it was still moving, the Imagineers simply put a strobe light effect to give the illusion that it was still moving. And because of this, the Yeti has been nicknamed the Disco Yeti. Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey opened on 12th of February 2010, taking guests on a magical adventure through Hogwarts as Harry, Ron and Hermione take you to a Quidditch match. The attraction was popular due to its intensity, its atmosphere and the ride system, which was never seen before. The ride system for the attraction is heavily like robotic arms that are used for manufacturing. Originally, the ride had only 2 seats, but Universal decided to upgrade the vehicle so it could have up to 4 guests. The arm is attached to a track, which will guide guests through the show building. The 3 screen sections on the ride are operated on turntables that contain 6 parabolic screens. The screens are so large that when seen from the perspective of the ride vehicles, the edges cannot be seen, giving the illusion of the riders traversing the Wizarding World before moving on to the next scene. The ride vehicles were programmed to dive, rise and curve along with what's happening on the scene, giving the guests an illusion that they were engaging with Harry Potter as they fly through Hogwarts' school grounds. This effect is similar to other simulation rides such as Star Tours and Soarin'. Each ride vehicle also had a pair of speakers built into them, so they can play audio to give the illusion that someone could be behind them. As theme parks continue to develop and grow, so has the forms of ways to entertain guests all over the world. From practical illusions to the now more common projections and screens, the magic of attractions from Disney and Universal will most likely never cease and inspire the next generations of designers everywhere. With new ambitious projects on the way, such as Disney's Avengers Campus, only time will tell how attractions will continue to evolve over the years to come. After guests are taken through the 5th dimension after boarding a cursed elevator of a 1930s style hotel, they are taken up to 48 meters into the air, granting a view of the entire park before plummeting. After guests are taken through the 5th dimension after boarding a cursed elevator of a 1930s style hotel, they are taken up to 48 meters into the air, granting a view of the entire park before plummeting 40 meters down in a fixed drop system that consisted of just 1 rise and full sequence. 2 years later, in 1996, another rise and full sequence was added, aptly named Twice the Fright. It wasn't until 2003 that the tower was programmed to have a random sequence of 4 different drops in just one. After guests are taken up the lift hill to the top of Mount Everest, they soon come across the broken tracks that are nearby, seemingly caused by the infamous Yeti. Unable to go anywhere, the ride vehicle ends up going backwards, spiraling out of control down the mountain. When the train moves past the junction before the backward section of the ride, it stops for a moment to allow the track to switch over and allow the train to back into the mountain.